All right, so here we are with the first match of the night, which is Joe on the left on the Dragon mat, featuring his red white vehicles deck, and soon to make an appearance on the right hand side of the screen on the Amonkhet playmat.
Indeed. Which art is that, by the way?
I have no idea.
I can't remember with the.
I'm not good enough for those playmats. Will be Michael with, you said Esper Spirits?
Esper Spirits, that's correct.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, again.
Time to go and get the deck.
Oh, you wanted to give a wager. Well, not
Well,
a wager, but a percentage.
Sure, I mean, I've got my odds on favorites. Looking at the two deck lists. One thing that clearly sticks out is red white vehicles running, a very small 14 total creatures. Seems a bit on the shy side when you've got another 12 vehicles that you're looking to cruise. So
Sure.
I already see a little bit of a potential issue coming out of the red white vehicles deck.
Now, so the Spirits deck, though, or the Tokens deck, whatever you want to call it, is definitely like go wide. Not really a lot of like removal or whatnot. Does that play into any advantage? Like at least Joe's creatures aren't going to be getting torched left and right.
No, and that's definitely what we're going to see from Michael's side. He's going to flood the board early with tokens.
Right.
And
Well, it's just continuous.
absolutely. On turn 3 is going to be really his starting point on that curve, and from turn 3 on, he's going to be dropping 3 bodies a turn, which if Joe can't amass more than 1 to 2 creatures a turn, he's got a chump blocker every turn and still swinging 3+ damage over the top.
Certainly. I mean, Michael does have the advantage, at the very least, of playing one of the best cards in the format in Lingering Souls, which is going to cause any aggro deck to have a lot of fits.
Oh man, Lingering Souls in any format's a beating. But real quickly before we get started, tonight's format per se is what we like to call our modern Lite version. And for many of you that may be this first time watching this, it's the modern format, so the modern legal cards from 8th edition up through the most recent set. But the difference here is the Lite part is we're just commons and uncommons. So any common or uncommon printed in any set that...
In any printing.
Any printing, exactly. Thank you for correcting my terrible, terrible wording there. But the other thing that makes it unique in that fact is that we do not have a ban list. So you could see a skull clamp hit the board tonight. Maybe. You could see mental misstep from the sideboard for somebody. It's quite a possibility as well. So looks like our guys are just about ready to get started.
Well,
looks like Michael is drawing his mulligan.
Yeah, Michael definitely went with a quick mulligan. It looked like he had a slow hand the first time around. Maybe not an instant mulligan. It seemed reasonable. Joe, on the other hand, is this his mulligan or is this his first hand?
Looks like he's got 7.
Because all I saw were a pair of sky skiffs.
Yeah, I saw a sky skiff and maybe a welding sparks in there.
So you
We
start
got
with
Tranquil Cove there to gain a little life, start out.
So Joe should start hitting vehicles now.
So in comes the skiff. So he's
And
got a
ideally,
couple
Michael's going to
revokes.
produce some tokens this turn.
Should be that intangible virtue hitting the table.
Okay.
So that's going to lead up to a turn 3 Lingering Souls, which is going to put quite a bit of pressure on Joe, who's currently sitting with no creatures in his hand.
So on the on Michael's list, does he have
I forgot you have to equip
any of the 2-drop token producers?
He does not.
So he's going to be starting at 3 on tokens.
Yep. He
Is Intangible Virtue his earliest play?
that and Favorable Winds are his
Oh,
2 drops.
So it is a flying-based token stack.
Yep.
Okay. There's the Lingering Souls we were talking about, of course. We might be finding that our players need some tokens at this point. Oh, wow. He came prepared.
That's a first.
So we've got 2...
For this group, at least.
2/2 flying Vigilant Spirit tokens making an appearance. That Sky Skiff, if memory serves me correctly, is a 2/3.
It's a 2/3 flyer. Crew
so that
1.
It is significant. It is definitely crew 1.
So he's going to pressure point just to draw a card, essentially.
Cycle through. Finds himself...
One thing to note as well is Michael cannot currently flash back Lingering Souls on this turn.
Right, yeah, he's definitely lacking black mana. Although, with no creatures hitting the board for Joe, it doesn't matter all that much.
So Lingering Soul is the draw. It appears the Lingering Souls is the play. Oh, Drog Skull Captain hidden.
So this is changing things big time. So now we have 2 3/3 flying Vigilant Hexproof creatures. Spirits making their attack.
Thus
Michael remembers the Vigilance there.
Welding Sparks and pressure points. Oh, we see a Veteran Motorist finally.
Probably too late, to say the least.
Yeah, he's definitely behind now, and it's something we talked about. At the beginning was that small amount of creatures he running, he was going to more than likely find himself falling behind early.
And I mean, no pun intended, but with vehicles, you have to have the gas to keep them going. You can't, sit around for too long without any action. It's definitely a downhill sort of deck.
Looks like we got a Plains and a Treacherous Ogre. Treacherous Ogre going. Oh well, looks like they're both going to the bottom. I'm going to see a revoke on an invalid target currently. We'll see if the players can correct this.
We'll give them a moment before we run back across. Oh, interesting.
So
now that is a legal target.
It certainly is. That original spell, though, technically
what is the
did not have a legal target.
Yeah.
Well, with it having hexproof says specifically that it cannot be targeted.
Correct.
So,
I mean, just what's the judge's ruling there?
Well, the judge's ruling.
State error.
Yep. Because it's not a legal target, therefore he cannot cast it.
Right.
He doesn't.
We see a crude skiff enter into the defense, take a chump block. Michael's continuing to go downhill with his token producer. Yeah, not looking great.
Looking at 14 power on the board, right?
Yep. Does one of us want to go tell them about the hexproof?
Well, we'll worry about that off camera.
Sure.
But looking at sideboards, Joe has 10 creatures that he can bring in, and I'm going to recommend that he brings in quite a few of those.
It looks like
creatures.
He's doing some sideboard looking on the camera for us, which is nice.
He does have one Fragmentize, which I would really like to see come in on that one.
Yeah.
The companions would not be bad. Honestly, anything that he can play would not be bad.
Right.
Weld Fast Monitor is probably the best, just for the fact that he can give it menace, and with the tokens, at least he could start to chump in on them, which it looks like he's going to bring those in.
Yeah, he did pass up on the Fragmentize, though, I think. Interestingly enough, I don't know if he thought about it too much, but again, I think you're right. Threat density is pretty important here. It's worth pointing out that I guess we have a deck list here, but this is a block constructed.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is very much a block constructed from Joe, which was those that drafted. Definitely understood the red-white vehicles as a very powerful option.
And while Michael's deck certainly draws heavily from Innistrad block, it is certainly by no means a limited to a block kind of a deck.
No, you see a splash between Alara and with you got zealous persecution in there, and your intangible. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. From Michael's side, I can't imagine that he's sideboarding much, if anything. He could bring in some dismembers, probably take out the zealous persecutions. I don't know that he needs to go over the top, because he's not going to be killing much with the zealous persecutions. That
Right.
he'd be better off with a dismember per se.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, sometimes I think what we find in Modern Light is sometimes you feel like you can't sideboard enough, and sometimes I think the best play is just not to dilute your deck too much. Obviously, if you have a silver bullet answer to something, you'll want to bring it in, but it's definitely different from regular Modern, given the lack of things like Rest in Peace and
I've found
Stony Silence.
Yeah, in regular Modern, like you said, you're talking about silver bullets. You're talking about attacking the opponent. Where I think in Modern Light, you're looking at defending against something that can attack your deck.
Shoring up your matchup too is always good. Can you adjust your curve in some fashion? Can you, if you're being forced to play the control deck, can you get a little more control? If you're being forced to play the aggro deck, can you get a little more aggro?
Well, it's like if you're a token
It's
deck,
more like twisting the knobs.
you're gonna want, ideally in Michael's, what I'd like to see is Michael loses to pyroclasms. Not necessarily
Which is
loses.
surprising that we don't see those from Joe. It's a favorite card of Joe's.
Absolutely. So I would like to see, Michael sideboard like some burnt and forged tenders that,
Sure.
it can come out early, it can attack, it can swing through some of Joe's items, but then it protects all the work that he's put forth.
Sure. Although, it's also worth pointing out, sort of the slow roll with your tokens is also another possibility. Probably something we'll see Michael do here, given the matchup with Joe. I'd have to imagine if we're playing head games between these two, Michael's probably betting on the fact that Joe has a pyroclasm effect of some kind. So we see an opening from Joe with the Mountain.
With the mulligan to 6, he did ship that top card to the bottom.
And Michael with the try. Oh my god! Good solid fixing to begin with.
Got some
hearing some distress from Joe.
Groaning from that side of the table.
Keeping the one-landers, always risky keep, as they say.
Well, his curve really is very low.
Here comes land number 2. So we see a return of the Sky Skiff.
Playing a couple tap lands early for Michael,
certainly
helps Joe.
Certainly gives Joe some time.
As we discussed,
I feel like Michael probably feels like he has that time.
Oh, absolutely. He knows his curve. He really doesn't start till turn 3.
So this is.
We got Spirit, yeah, we do.
Another Lingering Souls?
No, we've got either Midnight Haunting or a Spectral
That is
Possession.
Midnight Haunting, for sure. It definitely wasn't a Spectral Possession. So that's a sorcery speed, 3-drop.
That's correct. Joe again just trying to draw some threats. So there he goes. He's got himself a Speedway Fanatic to throw down next turn.
It's interesting. So you mentioned the idea about the Kaladesh draft and the power of the red-white vehicles archetype. Did you find that was something you enjoyed in that format?
Oh, absolutely. It was
brings down another captain here.
Definitely one of my more successful archetypes.
Joe has a response, or at least he feels like he has a response. I think Michael's pointing out that the spirits are indeed hexproof, but not the captain himself at this point. And you said it's a shower of sparks?
That was not.
I'm not familiar with it.
I'm not 100% sure what that was. That looked like Rolling Thunder or Renegade Tactics, but I'm pretty sure it was Rolling Thunder.
He's holding the following cards.
But I can't say.
Hey, how you doing?
It was.
I'll call
There doesn't seem to be much affecting the board state.
No, and that's why I believe it was a Tactics. Again, another pump draw, just trying to draw himself into something.
Interesting.
Turns out they
Yeah,
don't
not a good
understand the meaning of
situation for
no.
Joe. And he offers up the concession handshake. And that's a quick match.
Looks like they're still playing on.
Maybe just a happy handshake.
Oh, gosh.
Maybe Michael has convinced him to soldier on. So we see the fanatic enter the battlefield. Joe's pondering a second move.
See if he moves to crew, because it does have haste. So it looks like he's going to
interesting.
move.
We see another vehicle in the battlefield.
No, chooses not to. Looks like he's going to save that skiff for defense.
Yeah, and I mean that's especially not knowing what Michael can draw. It could be easily, if you left yourself down with that much mana, Michael could certainly put enough power on the board, as we're seeing here. So now we have the hexproof lock, essentially.
Now he can't even kill a spirit. He's just letting him eat his skiffs at this point.
So Michael's swinging in for a total of 9, I believe, through the air.
He's got
and
11
Joe
total.
does go for the immediate scoop. So yeah, quick match. And
we can see that life total dipping about more accurately to where that match was going.
So, I mean, pretty much what you were thinking. Michael's certainly playing an established deck. I think it's a deck that, has seen some variations, but it's certainly something that we've seen played quite a bit. Whether you want to call it tokens or you want to call it spirits, it's definitely, I would hesitate to call it a mainstay, but we do certainly see it show up fairly often in Modern Light. Hilariously enough, I missed the memo on the deck list, but Michael has named this Norman Greenbaum, which is, of course, a Spirit in the Sky reference.
Indeed.
Classic. Don't let him say he's not cultured.
Indeed. Well,
and here are our players now.
You didn't hear my door knock to set it off.